Hello, everyone. In this video, I'm going to be reading Chapter 2 of our novel Just Dance by Patricia McLaughlin. Just Dance, Chapter 2, A Perfect Day. I didn't like the last day of fourth grade. I loved fourth grade, mostly because I love my teacher, Mrs. Ludoff. Mrs. Ludoff loves me too, which helps. I will miss her when I go to fifth grade. She knows I can write. She wrote back to me on my stories. She asked questions. Really? She writes with disbelief. Love this. Hug. I don't understand this sentence. What do you really mean? She is always right. Spelling is more important than you think, she once told the class. She sighed. I knew she was thinking about her husband, Sheriff Ludoff, who can't spell. He writes Ludoff's log in the newspaper every day, all about town events. He's a smart man who learned English when he was older, she said, but he can't spell. We know that by reading the log. Teddy Dunn's goats ran wildly around town. Mrs. Pheasant fell down in her nightgown. Mad Cat will not let Maud Willie in her house. Jack Willie couldn't stop laughing and had to be taken to the hospital. Just this week, he wrote, Billy Ream's bulls got out and ran down the road. We were afraid they might become violent. Violent? I knew the sheriff meant violent. I like his logs because they are puzzles waiting to be solved. I told Mrs. Ludoff this. She stared at me for a long time. I hope you keep writing all summer while school is out, she said. I don't know if I can, I said. I work better with assignments. I like to see things I'll write about. Sometimes Mrs. Ludoff says to write about light, why I'm crying, what a shelter dog wishes for, your favorite time of day or night, what your cat does at night while you sleep. And the morning after, we listened to my mother sing Umbel D in the shower. After we watched her sing to the cows in the meadow when they ran in to be milked. After she tried, as always, to charm the goats by singing and they bleated her away, there was a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Ludoff with Sheriff Ludoff. Come in, Rudolph. Come in, Ella, said my father. I didn't know Sheriff Ludoff's name was Rudolph Ludoff. It made me smile. I never knew Mrs. Ludoff was Ella. I guess most of us in fourth grade thought of her first name as Mrs. They came in and sat down at the kitchen table. My mother was out singing a lullaby to the pigs. We could hear her sweet voice through the door. Her singing always caused the pigs to stop and stare, frozen in place, so she could shovel out their pins. Cara nomi Regoletto, said my father. It means sweet name. Sheriff Ludoff gestured to a page of the newspaper. What mistake did I make today? He asked. Only a small one, I told him kindly, because I could see he was worried. You wrote turkeys with an I-E-S instead of turkeys with E-Y-S. Not too bad. Sheriff Ludoff smiled at me. We came to give Sylvie 2 pieces of news, said Mrs. Ludoff. Good news, I hope. For me? I said. Nate sat down at the table. Mrs. Ludoff nodded. I'll tell her, Ella, said Sheriff Ludoff. I may not be able to spell, but I can talk. My wife has a summer assignment for you. She does? What? Me, said Sheriff Ludoff. He took a piece of paper out of his pocket. This is a contract. I'd like to hire you to write Ludoff's log this summer. Your assignment, said Mrs. Ludoff happily. I read the contract. You're going to pay me for writing? Yes, you'll cover the town like a reporter. You can ride your horse sometimes, or ride with me. Maybe once or twice with my deputy, Lula. We'll give you a cell phone so you can report in events when you see them. My own cell phone. I like to ride with her the first day, said my father. We don't get to ride horses together very often. Suddenly, I felt like crying. My father put his large hand over mine. He knew I was a little afraid. He knew. That's just fine, Jack, said Sheriff Ludoff. You know the town roads. And fields and rivers, said Mrs. Ludoff. She knew I was nervous. The sheriff handed me a pin from his pocket. Do you agree? He asked. I agree. I signed my name. You'll see amazing things, Sylvie, said Nate, just like I said. Thank you, Sylvie, said the sheriff. Ella says you're a great writer, and you can write the log any way you want. And people will stop laughing at me. They call my log Ludoff's Loony Log. Could I write poetry? I asked. You can write whatever you want. Do it your way. Maybe we can call it Sylvie's Summer Log. All righty then. Mrs. Ludoff smiled. The sheriff was known for his well, all righty then comment. The sheriff stood up and he and Mrs. Ludoff walked to the door. Suddenly, Mrs. Ludoff turned. Do you want to hear the second piece of good news? I nodded. I'll be your teacher in 5th grade. I get to follow my favorite students. Yay! I thought I'd sit it to myself, but I said it out loud. Yay! Echoed Mrs. Ludoff. I hope I can do this, I said. You can, said Mrs. Ludoff. Remember what you wrote in class. Just dance. When they opened the door, I had a summer job as a writer. I had my own cell phone. I had my favorite teacher next year. And my mother was singing music from La Traviata, from our small herd of sheep, as their loud baas beat back at her. A perfect day. A perfect day, I repeated to my mother when she came up to say goodnight. I know, she said, perfect like mine. I get to sing every day. You'll get to write every day. She had a page in her hand with a man's picture. I reached out for it. What is this? James Grayston. He sent it to us so we could go hear him. I saw a poster of you singing with him. I saw it in the attic. You were both dressed up. My mother laughed. We did dress up in those days. She kissed me and went off to her shower. My mother is wrong. It's not the same at all. She could sing on stage with James Grayston if it weren't for us. And James was coming. She could have fame. She could have excitement. And I'd write about the town, the cows and horses and sheep that run loose. No surprises, no excitement. The shower went on, and I knew Nate and my father, gone to bed early, would listen from their beds. I will hear her too. I don't understand my mother, but I will listen to her song from my bed, Casta Diva, slow and sad, my mother's favorite evening shower aria. And the James she sang with is coming. Will she want to sing on stage, away from us? I listen, and then I sleep.